Thank you, Carly. Thank you for all coming to watch me today. I think I've got a few people in the crowd that I solicited, so thank you for coming to support me. I want you all to close your eyes really fast. And I want you, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your happiness right now. However it is that you want to gauge that happiness. Okay. Everybody have a number, I hope? Just remember it. So what is happiness anyway? Why might you not be happy? And what can you do to change that? That's exactly what I hope to tell you today. So the US ranked 18th in happiness out of countries in the world, number 1 being Finland. There are some events that have happened in the recent past, 2 names, Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, that I think bring to light that there might be a crisis on our hands as it relates to mental health, self-care, and happiness. There was a professor at Yale that caught on to this a couple of years ago. Her name is Laurie Santos, and she developed a class called Psychology and the Good Life. And it quickly became the most popular class in Yale's history. For those of you that don't know, Yale's been around for over 300 years. So obviously, she's onto something. And the reason why she started the class was simple. She said, I feel as if we have a crisis on our hands at Yale as it relates to our students' well-being. So she started to study and research what are some of the reasons why. And a lot of it came down to their happiness. I want you to close your eyes again. And I want you to think of 3 things that are going to make you happy. They can be whatever you want, but I just want all of you to come up with 3. Okay, does everybody have 3, I hope? Wrong, wrong, and wrong. Those conditions that you created, those circumstances, they're likely not going to make you happy. There was a psychologist named Lubomirsky, which I probably flubbed that name, but I want to give credit where credit is due. And she did a thought study. And she wanted to understand what are the determinants of our happiness. And she found 3 things. The first thing were your genes. And 50% of your happiness is going to be determined by your genes. And guess what? There's nothing that you can do to change those. The second thing, circumstance or condition. 10% of your happiness will be determined by your circumstances or conditions. And those things you kind of can control. The third thing she found that makes up or determines 40% of our happiness are our thoughts, behaviors, attitudes, emotions, actions. I'll restate that for you. 40% of our happiness is determined by our thoughts, our behaviors, our actions, our emotions. And 10% of your happiness, remember, is coming from your circumstance or your condition. So all 3 things that you listed, whatever they may be, those may happen. But even if they don't, you still can think yourself into happiness. Your mind is playing tricks on you by creating those conditions in your mind, and you can overcome that by changing your behaviors, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. I'm going to talk about the thing in the room that everybody wants to say that is really a determinant of our happiness, and that's money. I don't think anybody would argue that, hey, the more money I have, the happier I'm going to be. But that's not really so. There was a study that was done on people that made $30,000 a year. Their annual salary was $30,000. They asked this group of individuals, what is the number or what is an annual salary that will make you happy? And on average, that group said $50,000. Great, $50,000 and I'll be happy. They did that same study in a group of individuals that made $100,000 a year. So you would think that group that just said $50,000 These people that already make $100,000, you would think they're like double happy, right? Guess what? No. They want, on average, $250,000. I think my point is, and there actually is a magic number that Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, came up with, and all things being equal, $75,000 is about that break even on where you can support yourself, food, shelter, all of those things. So some people will think the more money they make, the happier they are, but it's really not true, about $75,000. So there is a number. And I think that all that comes down to, and the point that I'm trying to make is that group of people that made $30,000 and they want 50, and then you look at a group that makes $100,000, and if I told you $75,000 is really what you need, these people already have more than they need and they want more because they aren't understanding that the way that they're behaving, thinking, and acting is really what is determining their happiness. What if I told you in 5 years that you may have a horrible circumstance and you are paralyzed from the neck down? How happy do you think that you are going to be then versus how happy you are right now? You're going to be the same, and I'll tell you why. There was a study done, a Harvard psychologist, Gilbert, that he cited a study amongst two groups of people. One group of people just won the lottery, and one group of people just became paralyzed. They compared their happiness in each of those groups to a control group. And obviously they found in the group that had just won the lottery, they were happier slightly than the control group. And the group that had just become paralyzed was slightly less happy. They came back 3 months later and they surveyed the groups again, and guess what? This group came down to the control, so they got a little less happy than they were 3 months ago right after they won. And the group that had just become paralyzed, they got a little more happy. So they equaled out back to their control groups. So guess what? It's all up here. I hope that each of you gains a little bit from this and that you can understand that our happiness is only what we make it. You can change your conditions in which will make you happy, but you're only going to create more and more of those conditions in your life. You can be happy right now. So I want each of you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about your happiness number. What is it now? You can open your eyes, but I hope that for each of you, or only if one of you in this room, someone got a little bit happier. Thank you.